Imagine a day when you come into your office and all of your computer systems have been locked up because of a cyber attack. One of the things that is most important about running and managing a business is the ability to understand when cyber risk is evolving. TARA CTA was developed to provide a visual reference for internet-facing resources that could allow an attacker to get into your business and cause harm. What you'll notice when you log in is that we've designed the dashboard to be inherently simple and easy to understand at a glance. First of all, if there are green check marks for given categories of items we track, that means there was nothing found. And what we do is we provide a monthly scan to evaluate your internet-facing resources. On the contrary, anything that has findings will show up as a red alert. So if you look at the overall risk score for this fictitious company called Lawrence Equipment, you'll see it's currently sitting at a 702, which is high. Now, oftentimes folks ask, well, high relative to what? Well, that's a great question. And what we do is we benchmark Lawrence Equipment against like organizations in the manufacturing industry. In this case, you'll notice that we've done 2 monthly scans or have 2 bars. Ultimately, as additional scans are completed, the bars will fill in across that screen until there are a total of 12. So the categories cover technical items that generally business owners aren't going to be too familiar with on how they need to fix them. But as I said, with reference points or red alerts, they'll know that there are problems that need to be addressed. Email security focuses on reputation of your email systems, and there are components in there that are used and tracked to verify that the items required to certify your good reputation or good standing are enabled. We also have the ability to see if enabled items are actually being enforced, and in this case you'll see that while the items are enabled, they're not being enforced today, which is why that category appeared as red. One of the most important pieces of security that you can have as a business is a firewall, and that firewall is kind of a barrier that sits between you and the internet. By virtue of that, any open ports that allow traffic to travel back and forth to the internet are something that need to be noted. So when we conduct the very first scan for an organization, all ports will be flagged as open ports. But once your team goes through and validates things that they are actually accurate and supposed to be open, they can click on any given port, indicate that they are accepting that, yes, that's a valid port, at which point that port will gray out and go to the bottom of the list. Once all of the ports have been accepted during the initial scan, then the only thing that would trigger a red alert for open ports in the future is when a new port opens. And this is important because data that passes back and forth to the internet through ports that aren't supposed to be open could cause or lead to a breach very rapidly. We track databases that are exposed. So if you're posting data out on the internet and we can see them, we will of course identify those. And again, this is another important thing, just like open ports. If you had client data in a database that wasn't supposed to be exposed to the internet, well, then you'd want to know that. So like the open ports, you can accept databases as being valid, at which point that category would change to green. And then in the future, if a new database popped up as being exposed, it would generate a red alert. That's one of the great features of TARA CTA is any time that a item changes from green to red during a monthly scan, it will then generate an alert, an email alert to the stakeholder in your organization who's responsible for fixing these things. We also track breach credentials, and these would be emails associated with the domain links you provided for your business. So in this case, what we see is there was a Neiman Marcus breach in May of 2024, and here are the 4 emails from the company that were exposed during that breach. It's important to note that as emails are exposed, more than likely the passwords were exposed. So it's very important to get those passwords changed as soon as possible, and that's why we provide this type of detail in this record. In addition, if this were, for instance, say a list of 30 or 40 emails that were part of that breach, you could simply export them to a CSV or JSON file and email them to any of the associates in your business who would be responsible for getting them fixed. That is the case with any particular detail item on any screen. We can export the data. So that's a nice feature that provides a lot of additional flexibility. We track newly registered domain certifications. So each time a domain is given a new certificate, point of that is to stop somebody from registering a domain that doesn't belong to them but should belong to you. So you can verify that it was registered. The other item that's interesting is potentially spoof domains, and those would be domains that have names very similar to your company domain. And the reason that people might buy them is so that they can develop, profile, and create fake emails that look like they're coming from your organization. What we recommend folks do, and you can see that by hovering over here, is if there are domains of concern, simply block them from your email server so that they cannot come into any of your employees and try to convince them to do something that they otherwise shouldn't be doing. We also track software weaknesses. And those are unfortunately accountable for about 60% of all data breaches. Software flaws that need to be fixed are called software vulnerabilities. And just as we do with the overall risk score, we track vulnerabilities on a scale of 0 to 1,000. The higher the risk score, the more dangerous or risky that software vulnerability is. It's important to get any software vulnerability with a score of 650 or more fixed as quickly as possible. We provide a lot of detail on the software vulnerability, including its unique identifier, which is called a CVE. We provide detail on what domains those vulnerabilities are on. And then we also allow drill down information to link for additional sources on how to fix that problem. Your technical resources would be able to link to Microsoft knowledge base articles or the National Vulnerability Database, which is hosted by the federal government, to in fact do more research on how to get those fixed. In addition to doing monthly scans, we do daily updates on software vulnerability scores. This is important because we scan once a month. It's common for vulnerabilities to go from a low score of say 200 or 300 to a high score of 600-700. And once a vulnerability exceeds that threshold that we recommend addressing it very rapidly of 650 or above, you will also get an email alert saying that there is a vulnerability that has surpassed your threshold, and it will provide the vulnerability CVE and the most recent data about that vulnerability as part of the email so that your team can go investigate and get it fixed. That's a high-level overview of what TARA could do. If you want to see it in action or require any more information, please feel free to contact us directly.